Do they see my screen? Uh, no, I don't want to see that. This is the one I want, yes. Okay, I guess we're live. So, hey everyone, I'm going to be giving you a walkthrough of how to set up Turboship. Well, how to initialize it with as a new project. I was inspired by this YouTuber, Web Dev Cody. I really like his channel, his content. He just kind of live streams a bunch of projects that he's working on, and he seems to be getting a lot of traction. He's actually a really new streamer. He streams all the time, so super impressed by this guy. I hope that I can produce some content that the world likes, sort of like this guy. Well, actually, no, he's not that new. My bad. He's been doing this for a couple years now. So let's see how long it takes me to get to a video with 1 million views. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, but yeah, for today's program, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to set up Turboship's auto-generated projects as a proof of concept that it works. By the end of it, you should know how to download the source, install dependencies, fix known issues, and run the generated projects. And what do I mean by projects? So specifically, you're going to be able to run a Flutter app, which has like some basic functionality of a Flutter app. There's navigation and there's a feed where you can see content and comments and other stuff. On top of that, there's also a React Native project as well. I included this one because there's a lot of back and forth right now between which one is better, React Native or Flutter. And to be honest with you, I feel pretty confident in both of them. So I figured, why not? Why not make Turboship support both frameworks, such that the code that is generated and can be used by devs from both sides of the fence, both sides of the aisle. And then lastly, it'll also include the setup for a web application. The web application will include some pretty standard stuff for any startup, resources on the website. You can manage your resources. You can look at related entities, and just a bunch of different things that are pretty common practice from my experience as a full stack web developer. And actually, I should have introduced myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Loi Tran. I'm a developer, instructor, and student. I say student because in technology, there's just a world out there, an impossibly large amount of stuff that you have to learn to be successful in this field. So I like leaving it there to remind myself that there's always someone better, no matter how much you've learned. Okay, so that being said, Turboship, right? It's this guy right here. Uh, if you navigate to turboship.net, you can find a bunch of content here. Here's the landing page, which gives you like a 10,000 foot overview about what it does. And it's kind of a work in progress, but you have to start marketing your product sooner or later, and probably sooner, so you don't waste a bunch of times. Here's a bunch of articles that I've written just to practice my writing skills, and also to one day explain some of the different concepts that are required to that a developer needs to understand in order to use Turboship. Because to be frank, if you don't understand Vue, Nux, Flutter, or React Native and React, then you're not going to be able to leverage this tool. It's free right now. I haven't even set up the login yet because it's just so complicated. And I know that what the login isn't complicated, but the framework is complicated. And the number of potential clients or users that I might have for this platform, this product, this customer is so small that I just said, hey, forget about it. Let's make it free for right now. But okay, so here we are. We're at turboship.ltran.net. If you click Entity Builder right here, you'll be navigated to a screen, which is sort of like a UI for basically defining tables in your application, defining resources. So just anything that you think that you're gonna manage in your application. So here you can see on the left, we can add entities, resources, or we can view the ones that we currently have. So every single application is gonna have the concept of a user or an account. or transaction, etc. Right? Or not, my bad, my bad. They'll all have a user entity or resource. And users, they need to have their attributes, right? Email, phone number, first name, last name, etc. And it's up to us as developers to define all of the other resources within our application, as well as their data types over here. So you got to kind of play around with it. I would love to get some feedback, but long story short, whatever startup you guys are working on, your next project, right? You can do a little planning up front and then design your database right here and then get the code generated out for you. So I'm just going to go with the default template that I have set up. There's a couple of different ones, but I'm going to stick with the bank one because I've already generated out some seed data. I'm going to go ahead and remove these unnecessary ones. So specifically foo. And also just keep in mind that we can rearrange these values right here as we want, and that will reflect in the UI in the future. And what I mean by that is it will reflect right here, the order that we have from this guy right here will reflect right here, as well as all the attributes as well. Although, my bad, I have to do that in a different view, blah, blah, blah. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's stay back on focus. The goal of today's stream is to have fun. It's the first time I've ever actually live streamed. My bad, not the first time. I did it about 8 years ago for a previous company I worked at. But it was just all over my head what the objective was, and I just was really immature in my career at that time. So now I hope to hopefully do much better and set myself up for success in doing this. But anyway, have fun while doing this. Demonstrate how to set up Turboship, run a web API, run a web client, run a Flutter mobile app, run a React Native mobile app, understand live streaming dynamics. So I'm actually kind of curious now if you guys can comment or how to view this. Can you guys see? I had never done this, so here it is. Oh, what's up, dog? Yo, what's up, Michael? Yeah, exactly. So this is the first time I've done this. Hey, hi, Michael. Thank you, buddy. I love you, dog. Yeah, let me give that guy some love. So anyway, here are the goals. You guys can see, I'd expect, you guys can see the program right here. So you can basically see what my expectation is with the app, with today's live stream. We're gonna have one of these guys spit out, one of these guys, and one of these guys. Here's our goals, and then here's an antithesis. So basically, the truth of the matter is I haven't programmed with every single framework. I don't know all of them. So this is just my opinion, which I didn't come up with on my own, but rather I did some research and I decided that these are the ones I thought were most suitable for building applications and the ones that I would choose on my personal projects or whatever project I led in the future. I'm lacking benchmarks. So I say that these tools are performant, but I hadn't gone deep into the weeds and been like, hey, let's see how quickly this thing can load 1 million records. So I'm gonna leave that to someone else, or maybe one day in the future, I'll figure out how to do that. Limited scope. So this is more of a cookie cutter web app and mobile app. I've worked on some pretty complicated apps in the past, and I didn't want to set up those apps. I didn't want to set up Turboship to run that very, very, very specific type of app because that would just be so much work for very little ROI. So once again, this is trying to be a cookie cutter app as a foundation, and then whatever serves the startup, whatever is their value proposition, they build on top of it, the developers and the tech team. Last thing is I've taken a leap of faith. We don't have time to research everything. Sometimes you just have to make a decision and run with it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the live stream, and we're gonna rock and roll. So right now, let's pretend I'm gonna build something like mint.com. They actually sold recently to some company. I forgot what it was, but I can't access my account anymore. Yeah, they sold to Intuit, so I can't access to it. But anyway, when I set up this template right here for the initial bank guy, I was imagining building mint.com. So that's how I modeled the resources, and that's why there's kind of this confusing thing where there's multiple banks and each bank has a branch, and yada yada yada. That's how we build. If you're a developer, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm actually hoping to teach other people as well who aren't developers. So that's why I'm streaming to my Facebook. So you know, we all learn together, right? Life is a journey where we all learn together, hopefully. Okay, so anyway, let's pretend that we've researched Mint, we got all of our resources modeled, everything is good to go, right? We're happy. Banks have CEOs, they have phone numbers, descriptions, yada 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 yada. So at this point, we'd be prepared to generate our code. So you just hit file.generate, and then it's gonna make a API request, and then eventually, hopefully, download a zip file. This zip file will contain the generated source code for the 3 projects, right? These two mobile apps and the one web app. So right here, we just downloaded it. It's 1:33 p.m. where I'm at, and well, I downloaded it at 1:33, and it's now 1:34. So let's go ahead and unzip it. So inside of this guy, we're just going to see 3 folders for right now. Each one of these folders corresponds to a framework and its source files. So RN is for React Native, Nux is for Nux, and Flutter is for Flutter. If we expand them, you can see that basically these are all the source files. And just as a heads up, I went ahead and kind of set up the projects on my local because I didn't want to make you guys sit here and watch me run node modules because frankly, it will take a while. And you know how it is, whenever you initialize a project, it has to go out there and get all the binaries, all the other good stuff to to run the project, essentially. All right, so what's the first step? Well, it's almost always a good idea to read your setup, right, or your README. So I'm going to go ahead and do the Nux project first because it's the one that handles the API, and you know, both for the mobile apps will need the API. Okay, so just as a heads up on tooling, I'm going to be using VS Code. Here I have VS Code. I also have a terminal tool, like an aftermarket one called Kitty. I like it because it's super performant. And on the bottom left, I'm going to run Nux. In the middle, I'm going to run Flutter. On the very far right, I'm going to run React Native. And look at the path here. It's inside of documents, work, demo, Turboship. I'm showing that because I'm going to prove to you here in a moment that we're going to make these apps work in a few minutes by just downloading some files and then knowing these frameworks, knowing Nux, Flutter, and React Native. So you can see here, for example, in Nux, the Nux demo project, there's only one file, the node modules, right? And inside of our React Native project or folder, we only have an iOS, Android, and node modules. We're missing our package.json, our entry point app.tsx or JSX, depending on if you're using TypeScript or not. And inside of Flutter, we're also, well, this one I kind of left alone. I didn't delete everything, but the most important one is missing, the lib folder. That directory will have the meat and guts of our Flutter application. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and copy everything. I'm going to copy this guy right here to Nux. I'm going to paste. Okay, so now we have all of our source files for this project that we've run. And let's look at the path. I wonder if I can. Yeah, so it's work, demo, Turboship, Nux demo. That corresponds to this guy right here, right? I'm trying to prove to you. Oops. Uh, so let's just do one more test. We'll do a touch foobar.md. So my expectation here, no, actually, let's do a z.md. My expectation is that if this is the same folder, we'll see a z.md down here. So I'm gonna go ahead and touch it. And then we do see that pop up right here. Okay, so we've confirmed that this is the same directory, and hopefully at this point, all we should have to do is just run npm install and then run npm and start our server, and then we should have our web application up and running. but I only only walked through this once, so I don't know. We might have some errors that we have to debug together. So I don't know. Let's just be positive. Okay, so now we see that installing the dependencies exited successfully. We have some vulnerabilities, but we don't actually have a failure. So now I think we can run npm run dev, and you'll see that, hey, this starts off our server running at localhost 3000. So now I can basically navigate to this guy, and you'll see, hey, we have a web application. It's running at localhost 3000, and we have a silly little welcome page right here. But most importantly, if we jump over to Showcase and then click Admin Dashboard, you can see that we have this admin dashboard with all the code set up to basically, well, in this case, with a bunch of graphs set up so that we can just inject some values into these graphs and then represent our data, whatever data is important to us for our business. For right now, it's wizards and muggles for myself, because sometimes I think of myself as a wizard when I code in my imagination. But anyway, yeah, there's a bunch of different charts, and as you know, your tech team can inject whatever value that they find is appropriate to represent whatever use case is necessary. On top of that, we have here are audit logs. So right now, when I click audit logs right here, I see that there's nothing showing up. And that indicates to me that I've set up some type of configuration wrong, because, oops, my headphones just died, I think. I hope you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Shit, can you guys hear me? Okay, let's just, I'm hoping. How do I, let me turn off my, I'll turn off this guy. Where was I? I just basically, we turned on our web application. We have the application running, but you can see that we have no data right here. So that indicates that the front end web application is not yet hooked up correctly to our back end database. So how might we debug this? Well, the first thing you just want to confirm. So I open up my DevTools and refresh the page. And then we can see if we're looking at our route users, right? So that would, convention would say that we're gonna query for our user resource. And here we can see that we got a 404 whenever we made a request to this route. This one right here. So 404, blah, blah, blah. So now I gotta think about what I've done wrong here. Oh, we need to set up our environment variables. So essentially this is just basically like, hey, what's the weather outside? Is it hot? If it's hot, I wear shorts. If it's cold, I wear a coat. So I'm going to run this command touch environment .local. Essentially what this is going to do is it's going to basically create a file, and then we're going to add some values to it. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and open up VS Code from here. So we see we have our environment.local, and how did I have the values? Let me think about this. I must have, oh, it was hidden earlier, I think. So let me think about this actually. Let me think about this. Do I have, here's our Nux demo. Okay, I'm gonna, oh, okay, the error is coming from something else. Firebase is complaining right now. So this is like a trade-off in anything, right? If we get more, we have to sort of invest more. So before this application can run successfully without throwing an error, we have to make sure that we configure our Firebase too. So inside of the generated code, there's basically, there's a placeholder for basically our values for Firebase. And I'm not going to create a new Firebase project. I'm just going to assume here that everyone who is watching this video like taking the time to really watch it and rewatch it will already know how to do that, which is why they'd want to use something like Turboship, because they'd recognize that, hey, this is something I don't want to do again and again and again, set up all the other silly stuff. Okay, so I copied over Firebase or the config. Think about this. Hold on. So I copied over this, but now we're getting a complaint that viewfire is not recognized. So now I'm thinking that I refactored too quickly. So I have viewfire right here. So let me go ahead and run npm install again and see what happens. I wonder. I'm thinking here, why would it complain about that? It might be one of those stupid errors that aren't errors. So let's close the tab and open it and see whether or not the red squiggly line goes away. And it does, in fact, do that. That's the thing about programming. Sometimes you can't trust your tools. Kind of sucks. It's kind of like life. Sometimes you can't trust your friends. I'm just kidding, but also kind of serious. Okay, so we've configured that value, and let's go ahead and run npm run dev again, and then let's see whether or not we can get past that error. So it's complaining about the environment right here. Okay, so I think it's because I forgot to update this guy. So when we run npm run dev, it runs the script here on line 80 that runs nux dev environment local. So it's looking at our environment local file, this guy right here. Oh, and I think it's because I had a typo there, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so let's restart it. It's still complaining. That is confusing to me. Is it because okay, so evidently I accidentally removed a configuration from this file, which should have been here. So luckily I did a test run before, and I have it right here. So I'll make sure I update this guy. So I need to make sure that the generated code includes this guy right here. Okay, this key and value pair right here. So it's basically a key called mongoose. It's got an object as its value, and that subsequently has a couple keys with their corresponding values. Okay, so now we can go ahead and restart this guy again. And at this time we should be good to go. Yeah, I'm getting a complaint again. Come on. Why? Think about this. Mongo process environment, Mongo URI. I swear I just did this. Let's go ahead and drop over here and see what happens. Okay, we get the error again, a 404. So I'm gonna go ahead and do something. I gotta kind of close out a bunch of windows because I'm super paranoid with my computer being slow. Sometimes it caches values and then you don't really get an update from like changes that you actually made, which kind of sucks. So how do I do let me think about this. Okay, so we're here, we're in our Nux demo. We have our environment variable here, MongoDB URI. That value is required by Nux. Nux, it's a full stack web development framework. It has access to database, and on line 48, it's saying, hey, I need this guy right here, this process.environment.mongodb URI. Okay, let's one more time. Okay, it's there. Now I'm concerned my computer might be going slow because a bunch of stuff is going on. I'm going to close everything, all my stuff, all my VS codes, and then reopen it because I find that this sometimes helps me as well. All right, so we're opening up our Nux demo. I'm going to run npm run dev, and it still complains. So it's missing this in your environment. So I'm being fancy here, kind of trying a bunch of abstractions at once. We could just as easily do a dot environment right here. So if we copy this guy, instead of doing a dot environment dot local, we can just do a dot environment, and then hopefully, if I understand Nux correctly, it will pick up that value. It will pick up this file right here. It's looking for a dot environment file by default, the place where we kind of store our secrets, where we put our keys to our database and whatnot. So when I see that run, I can see that Nux starts up, and I no longer get that complaint. I no longer get that complaint about the MongoDB URI missing. So now I'm optimistic that this will work. So if I jump over to localhost 3000 and administrator, hopefully, if I jump over users, oops, or audit logs, you gotta be kidding me here. Hold on. Come on. Okay, so evidently I broke the links on the left by trying to make the code more concise. That's the problem. Every single time you know how it is. Whenever you refactor code, trying to make it more beautiful or concise, sometimes you end up breaking stuff that was previously working. So anyway, that's just something everyone does. It's part of being a developer. It's like being a basketball player. Even if you're in the NBA, a part of your job is to miss shots, right? It's not to miss shots, but it's to take shots. And taking shots inevitably means that you're going to miss some shots, is how I look at it. So anyway, you can see now that whenever I load this guy, whenever I load the screen, I can see that our UI fills. We have a bunch of users here. We have a users table. We have their email, their phone number, first name, all this other good stuff right here. Their corresponding resources. We can also paginate through them. And more importantly, what I was hoping was, before I lost my train of thought, was we can see that whenever a page loads and we paginate, we're issuing API requests to our backend, our API, and it's responding with the 200 and a payload, which has some data. So it's going to have some data, which are, in this case, user records, basically users in our database. And that's essentially how all web and mobile applications will work. No matter what screen you're loading, there's an outbound request that says, hey, give me some data about something. So right now we're looking for users. We make a request to users. We get some data about users. This can just as easily be applicable to banks. So once again, remember I was saying that I basically thought about this template when I was thinking about cloning Mint. Banks will need names, CEOs, phone numbers, headquarters, etc. And the key here is that this code was automatically generated by Turboship, the APIs. And you can see here that whenever we make a request to banks, we have our bank resources. Each one of these guys is an individual record in our database. And we can test this further because I've kind of left the API exposed just for demonstration purposes. If you navigate to API/banks, you can just see the JSON right here, which is kind of cool. So we've proven that let's go back to what we're talking about. We've proven that we can run a web app. We've run our web API. We've run our web client, which includes a bunch of stuff. In this video, you guys can see. We'll actually do the rest of the demo for the web app whenever we finish doing the mobile app for Flutter. So let's go ahead and move on to run Flutter mobile app. Okay, so now that this guy's running, basically we can go ahead and put him away, right? Let's go ahead and minimize, and then we'll go over to Kitty. Now I'm looking for my Flutter app, this guy in the middle, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and open up VS Code and get to work on this guy. Okay, so remember we're missing our lib folder here, which will contain our entry point, our main.dart. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our download folder, and we can go ahead and just delete everything, delete Nux, and we'll move on to Flutter. So I'm gonna copy this guy right here. I'm gonna jump over to the directory where I have the Flutter code, and now I'm gonna paste. And it's gonna ask me, do I want to overwrite? Yes, I do. because we're gonna, we're the idea here is that actually I haven't thought of an eloquent way yet to generate out the Flutter project and the React Native project, because it needs to have local paths on your machine to work correctly. And we're gonna see what I mean here in just a second. So I'm gonna open up my documentation. Where was it? So it's this guy right here. Yeah, so basically the Xcode, in order to set up Firebase correctly, you have to run a command that's run on your local machine. It's not something that we can run for you as a company trying to build an app that makes your life be easier. At least not now, as our current understanding is. So essentially, you'd initialize a new Flutter project. You'd basically do what I just did, copy and paste over the source Flutter files, and then basically run pub get. So you want to get all your packages, and then install all your dependencies, set up Flutter Fire, and then hopefully run Flutter run. So then in a moment, we should have a sexy Flutter application. So now I'm going to run Flutter pub get from my Flutter directory right here. This guy. We can see that kind of went through fast because I ran it earlier. And we also now we have our lib folder with our entry point main.dart. It's got some comments. Typically, you're going to move into your iOS folder and then run a couple different commands right here. But at the very least, it will be pod install. So this is where the framework, you have to run a platform-specific code. You kind of have to set up your iOS app separately than your Android app. It'd be perfect if you could write some code that would work for both of them, but unfortunately, that isn't the case as the world currently exists. So I run iOS install the dependencies. Let's see whether or not we can now run Flutter run. So by running this command, it's gonna start off a process on the computer, and the computer is just gonna basically have this little guy that's living, and this guy's responsibility is gonna be to just basically look at the source code of the Flutter application, and then combine it, and then make it live inside of this simulator right here. And I'm actually gonna prove that this is going to be a new app by deleting all my previous Flutter apps. So you can see now I'm deleting all my Flutter apps. And if this runs successfully, you'll see a new icon here pop up, and it'll show whatever I initialized it as. I kind of forgot, to be honest with you. It's probably the same thing. It's probably Flutter demo or something. But anyway, I'm deleting everything. I probably should have gotten a second screen to know if people were talking to me. I wonder if anyone on YouTube is talking to me. We only have Michael, so evidently I'm not that cool. Let me think about this live. My channel, live. Okay, so we still have, I guess it's just me watching myself. Let's go ahead and mute it actually. And let's continue. So we ran our web API, we've run our web client. We now need to run our Flutter app. And that's what we're kind of working on right now, right? So you can see that basically this process of installing everything, even though we already ran Flutter pub get, getting all the native binaries. So basically like Flutter code kind of writes out iOS code, and that's how it can, using Flutter, you can build iOS apps. But in conjunction with that, it also writes out Android code. But anyway, a second ago, whenever I ran Flutter pub get, this is getting all the Flutter code that I need. It's getting like all my book bag of Flutter tools, right? But then after I run Flutter run, it kind of looks at some files inside of my Flutter or the iOS app Xcode looks at my Flutter thingy, my Flutter book bag, and says, okay, so with these tools, the interface for iOS, I need to get such and such, and it goes out and gets those corresponding dependencies. Anyway, as it's building, it's basically taking all these files right here, and it's going to combine them into something that's minified and can run quickly and smoothly, essentially. Kind of takes up a while the first time. I'm going to go ahead and leave it right here. Just remember, we don't have a Flutter icon here. And I'm going to go ahead and get started on the React Native. So basically, that's the same thing, right? We copy the source files inside of the React Native folder. We jump over here, and we go inside of our React Native app. This guy only has 3 folders. And then we paste. Okay. So now I can run, I can open up VS Code. It's still building. So this is a local process. It's just basically my computer going crazy, making sure everything is set up, doing all its checks. So I'm going to go ahead and actually run npm install within the React Native application. Okay, so it seems as if it's got everything. I can see here, this is Flutter, this is React Native. In a moment, we'll do what's necessary for this guy. So actually, there's one thing I kind of forgot to mention. Because I already initialized the React Native project, or my bad. Let me explain this better. So just like Flutter, I mentioned a second ago, React Native needs to be initialized using your CLI before you download the package or afterwards. But you need to initialize some files, the iOS and the Android directories. These have to be run on your local machine so that it basically has these files and they're like linked to your machine and set up correctly. But after you're done with that, for React Native specifically, there's this dependency. I'm sure that everyone who's coded in React Native for some time has used it. React Native vector icons. We basically need to copy this value right here, this key, this value over to our info.plist file. So basically, we copy that down here, and this will make our icons live. Like it basically is the code that we have to write in order to make the icons work within the application. Okay, so it's been a while, and we see here that our Flutter app is currently running, right? And we have a white screen right here. So yeah, this is now this is where we figure out, where we prove that we're worth money. So it's now complaining about our entry in pubspec.yaml. It's saying, hey, I don't understand something inside the assets.environment. So I'm gonna look inside the assets, and it's missing a folder environment, and I forgot what goes inside of here. I'm actually kind of confused why I didn't copy it, because it should have. But in any case, I'm just gonna look at the project I already built. It's gonna be assets environment, and then environment.development, environment.production. So inside of inside of the Flutter project, look inside of here, we paste these 2 values. So we have environment.development, we're gonna make that 3,000, and production 3,000 as well. Okay, so now because we just changed a environment variable, we need to run our app again. We need to run stop and restart our Flutter app. It's just kind of how it works. And then now we can debug it. And I actually forgot I should be using VS Code's debugger and not the CLI debugger, because it actually gives you much better output for your logs. It's like much more easy to understand when you look at your debug logs here. I actually learned something from a previous coworker of mine, guy who's younger than me. And the truth is, I actually don't know whether or not I wrote this Flutter code perfectly. I'm just sort of once again going out on a limb and trusting some folks that spend more time in the Flutter ecosystem than I do, because I kind of I kind of enjoy being a full stack dev and bouncing around, do different things. I'm kind of curious about a lot of different things, to be honest with you. So, despite having worked a lot in mobile development, I also enjoy doing other things like infosec and backend DevOps, stuff like that. Okay, so now we can see that basically the app loaded successfully whenever I ran the debugger. We got a console log here, and we just basically got a bunch of beautiful outputs. Thank you, Thun, for showing me how to do this in the Flutter world. That was super helpful. So we got basically, it's kind of color coded, just like our syntax highlighting. And then we just have a bunch of different prompts that can help us debug what's going on. So now my expectation is if I open the application, it should run. Excellent. So if I jump over here to Albus Dumbledore, you can see here that my bad, before diving deep, but let's take a step back and appreciate what we've done so far. What we've done so far is we downloaded a zip file off the internet, and then we unzipped it and we copy pasted some of the files inside of it to one of our Flutter projects. And then afterwards, we ran it. And what did we get from that? We basically got a Flutter application that contains a drawer navigator, which in turn contains a tab navigator, which in turn contains many stack navigators. So this is a very common pattern within web app or mobile applications, right? Almost every single app has this type of behavior, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp, right? You got a list of different things. Every app is like some permutation of that, a list of things, and then you do something with that thing. So in this case, this is our list of people that we might be talking to. Albus Dumbledore or Tom Riddle. So we click on that guy, and then we're navigated to a screen in which we can talk to that guy if we were building a live chat app or a feature for live chat. So let's actually see whether or not this guy's going to work. So one of the value propositions of using a templating engine is that we don't have to set up all the stuff, like this isn't rocket science setting up a live chat, but it is work. So let's see what happens. If I throw a ping, I get a ping. So from my ping, can I get back a pong here to my mobile application from this web application? I get my pong right here. And then obviously anything else, right? Like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. I click it, and we see that that happens live in real time. So that's one of the awesome things about using Firebase. It's just instantaneous, and it's got a bunch of other stuff too. You have to, it's like it's just an awesome tool. I love Firebase. So, okay, we set up our Flutter application. Oh, my bad. So yeah, I demoed the live chat. I demoed the navigation. Yeah, this is where it just boils down to, it's just so much work to do all of this, to be honest with you, to make it look good, etc. Here we have a live feed screen, a news feed screen. So you can think of this as sort of like LinkedIn. I hadn't finished it yet because I kind of got stuck in a part where I wasn't sure whether or not, I knew how to build it, but I just wasn't really happy with my code. And I just decided to take a step back and work on some other stuff. But essentially, this is just going to be any screen, like from any application where there's some type of feed, right? You can imagine this as LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. Users share posts or they create posts. They have images. There's all types of engagement activities they can do, like react, comment, repost, or share it with someone else, send it to someone else. I'm actually hoping that someone will watch this video, feel inspired, and join me on building Turboship. It's actually open source right now, and whoever joins me, maybe we can be partners and do a startup. I'm actually not opposed to doing any other technology. Like if you guys want to do Rails or Django or any other backend like Next or .NET, I'm okay with it as well, to be honest with you. But I was doing research and I just kind of went with the numbers, what was most popular, and this is the data that I got. So for a backend, it was Node.js. So that's 42% of developers like using it and want to use it again. So that's more than Next, my bad, .NET. in Rails and Django. And then on the front end, the most popular cross-platform mobile one was actually Flutter. And this comes from not my butt, but from Stack Overflow's 2023 developer thingy. So yeah, all response, Flutter versus React Native, 9.12, 8.43. So I didn't make up those numbers, okay? Okay, so moving on. Where was I at? Kind of got lost. This thing kind of... Okay, so we set up our Flutter app. We set up our web API and our web client. The last thing we got to do is set up our React Native application. Oh, my bad. Let me show you one more thing, a couple more things with the Flutter app, because this is the one I spent more time on. Is basically, I put in some basic features that I think the vast majority of apps want to have or will one day have. At least in my experience, that's been the case. Like, there's always a requirement to turn on light and dark mode for people who have whose eyes get tired or whatever. And then also a demonstration of how we might change the theme or the color palette of the application. This isn't important, the feature of allowing users to change the theme of your product. What's important here as a demo is that, like, you can just switch one configuration and have the entire theme switch. So it's like coded in an elegant way such that you know, if ever you change your theme, you're not changing 1,000 different values across 1,000 different pages. Is my point in implementing this feature here, to demonstrate that, like, hey, this can be done relatively easy. No, extremely easy. And then lastly, internationalization. So right now we basically only have Vietnamese and English, because that's just the languages I chose. But you can see here that whenever we switch between, we toggle, that the text right here goes from chữ to text. And that's just basically showing you that we can make our app work for whatever language we want. We don't have to just run a Python script and then whatever language you want to configure it for, it basically run for a couple minutes and spit out the variation that we want. And then we can make it so that the user can click that guy and switch that language. And then lastly, we have a bunch of design kit, right? A design kit to demonstrate, like, hey, copy and paste this to get whatever thingy that you're trying to build in your UI. Here's some icons, here's some buttons, etc. Oh, and yeah, so this is kind of where I wish I'm demoing, because I want to have a teammate working with me on this, because I sort of don't know what to work on at times, to be honest with you. Like, what's the most important feature for a template like this? And what I mean by that is, like, after we sign out, we kind of kick the user back to a what is it? I forgot what they call the screen. It's a screen for initial demonstration of the product, I guess I'll call it. So yeah, is this important? Would this be valuable in a template? Because we can easily add a bunch of these guys, a bunch of different versions of an onboarding screen with animations that are beautiful and etc. But I don't know, is one good enough? Hard to say. At the end of the day, like, 90% of the features that we end up writing as developers get thrown out. So I don't want to just code a bunch of features that no one's going to use, right? I kind of want to build something that's going to be helpful to the community, the people that use, the customers that use Turboship. So anyway, yeah, that's it. We got an onboarding screen, a navigation, etc. And that's our Flutter app. So now let's go ahead and jump over to our React Native app. Okay, so I think I shouldn't have set up so much, because I was kind of wanted to have some of those bugs. I might have to redo this video with doing everything from scratch, because there's certain bugs that I documented in the setup guide, which I kind of want to demo for everyone, so that they're not scared, whenever they encounter it. But anyway, at this point, all you gotta do is run npm install and then npm run dev, and I think it should be running. So let's go ahead and try it. So I run npm install, and then, oh my bad, npx React Native run iOS. It's been so long since I've Well, never mind. That's actually not true. Yeah, so I ran this command, npx React Native run iOS. That's saying, hey, I want to run my source code, the React Native code right here that's inside of source, bundle all that stuff together and build an app for me. And you can see right now that that's exactly what our CLI is telling us. It's kind of currently building the app. So just like a second ago, we had a new icon appear, which was from the Flutter app. Now we're going to have a new icon appear, which is from our React Native app. And if anyone wants me to do it from the beginning, please comment and I'll actually do it, because I don't feel as happy seeing it work seamlessly, because I expect there to be a couple funky errors, but they might have just been errors that I encountered because I hadn't yet properly set up my machine as well. So I don't know, maybe these commands are enough to get you up and running. But also, if you guys want to learn about other stuff, such as like, distributing your app using Firebase, or how I would set up signing keys or stuff like that, comment, let me know, because yeah, I'd appreciate the feedback and the pat on the back, I guess you could say, because it's easier to want to focus on something else if you're not seeing some type of result. I mean, I'm so interested in so many different things, to be honest with you. For me, like, there's always this like dichotomy of like, should we be studying right now, or should we be showing, right? Because if I'm currently showing you some stuff I already know, I'm sort of not learning anything new. I sort of am, right? I'm developing a different type of skill, but I'm not learning a new technical skill, is what I mean. But in any case, I think it's good for me to walk through this and just develop the skill of presenting. I've done it before, but I could have done better before too. So I hope that moving forward, I'm a much better presenter, like my previous boss. I always think about my boss, Charles, man. That dude is such a great talker. He knows how to talk slow and stuff, and he's so patient. I'm trying to be more like him, and actually more like web dev Cody. That's actually what I said right here. Calm demeanor. I get too emotional sometimes. Sorry for spilling out my guts here to everyone. What I'm saying here is that, like, I'm an imperfect human being and I'm working on it. So thank you for joining me on this journey. Okay, so anyway, I see that we now have an error. Awesome project has not been registered. And this is actually a common problem, from having kind of messed around with React Native a bunch and also having just ran into it. I'm actually going to go ahead and place that right here. I'm going to say, if we encounter, let's just say, let's go ahead and update our documentation as we go. Okay. So we'll say, hey, if you run into something that says invariant violation, it just basically means that you configured something wrong. Invariant violation. And what that means, specifically what we configured wrong, is that we need to match the name of our application inside of our app.json to what's inside of our iOS guy, I want to say. So we're going to call it awesome project. Okay, we'll call it awesome project. And I'm uncertain whether or not we have to do it for our package.json. So let's leave it and see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my server. And then I'm going to go ahead and, oops, what did I? So this is our Flutter app. This is our documentation. Where was I running that? I don't remember where I was running it. So let's just go ahead and run it right here. It's a React Native demo. I'm going to go ahead and run npx React Native run iOS, and then add these additional flags right here that says, hey, clear my cache. Whatever you already like cached, those values, let's go ahead and clear them and make sure that we get some new values from the next time we run this. So now I'm getting because no terminal app was specified. Huh. Now I'm actually kind of confused. Let me think about this. But did it actually run? Oh my God, I think it actually ran. I'm tripping right now. Yeah, it ran. It ran and it installed. And where's the process? It should have a, here's the process. Okay, it's running. This is our process that like is gonna watch our code and update the application as we're coding. It's building the app. It built it successfully. It opens the app. And I think this time it doesn't throw the error. Yeah, so basically the error went away because we updated the name right here. This guy right here has to match. It has to match what's inside the iOS guy. So basically in our, this guy right here. So if you search if you use VS Code, you do search all files for whatever string that it's complaining about. You'll see the files that it's expecting that. So specifically, it was expecting it inside of a couple different places. But iOS is a whole other can of worms. The most important one is this info.pls guy. This is like your package.json for all our React Native or all our web devs who don't know mobile development. Info.plist is sort of like package.json. We define some configurations and variables, and then it's like it's used elsewhere. So that's why a lot of these files right here that we see, we can sort of ignore them because they're basically generated from this guy right here on line 8. Okay, so anyway, I can see that the application is running. We have what? We have a drawer navigator, which nests inside of it a tab navigator. And you can see here that every single time we click one of these tabs at the bottom, our content in the application kind of changes, right? And this is one I started working on the latest because, you know, with any meaningful project, there's just so much to do. But anyway, like you get the idea. We can make templates here. I hadn't decided how deep we should go with the templates. Should it just be templates for the resources on the database, or should we also have UI templates as well? I would actually love to. I'm going to ask that of future customers if I'm still working on this. So these templates right here, right? Basically, this guy right here, like if we collapse our view, I played around with this idea, I hadn't pulled the trigger yet. Think about this. We're gonna collapse everything. So we could delete all these resources right here, and what would happen is basically our localhost 3000 guy, it would have nothing here, right? But that's kind of defeating the purpose of using a templating engine. But we can, after we delete everything, select a different type of template. So I went ahead and just, to be honest with you, these are just templates that I was people asked me to build a startup for them in the time that I'd been working on this. Someone wanted me to build a booking app. So I basically went ahead and designed the database. So we have to have users, right? And our users we also need to have a hotel, and hotels need to have all these different things, all these different attributes about them with a certain data type. So you kind of click around and you can see here indicated by the green that this is the one that we're currently focused. And whenever I focus one guy right here, you can see here on the right, we have that attribute up here and its corresponding data type right here. So by clicking on name, you can see that the name field is a string. If we click on there's something else, let's try rating count. We can see that our rating count right here is an integer, right? So basically how many people gave a rating on our hotel, our rating score. This guy right here is a decimal, right? Because we can have decimal numbers. It's not going to be a perfect integer every single time we calculate our rating score. But anyway, this is just basically a rough estimate of what I think the fields and attributes that were necessary to build a booking app, sort of like booking.com or Airbnb. We need to have a hotel resource, a room, a booking resource, and lastly, maybe a review resource. This is just a template, right? We're using this to start people off. You guys can create your own thing, right? Let's just say that you want to have rentals, right? You can add your own rental resource right here. We'll have one field, we'll call it name, because the rental needs to have a name. We'll add that as a value. So our rental table has one field called name. Its data type is string, and we'll have cost, maybe. I'm making stuff up right now. So we'll add that guy, and then we click create entity. Oops, I must have the, oh, I always forget. It's this funky validation. I need to have something there to create it. So I create entity, and now you can see that we just added our rental entity. And essentially what would happen is that whenever I click file generate inside of our downloads guy, we'll have a path. Well, that will say we'll have paths defined, we'll have models defined, we'll have a lot of the code that is like basically the foundational code for any application setup. So if we look inside of our Nux, we look inside of our server, our API, you can see that we now have rentals. And then here's our different paths, right? So we can get all of our rentals. And let's actually take a look at this code actually. So it's like not anything super crazy. Basically, when an inbound request comes, our API, we have a event handler, basically looks at the limit and the page params. We also look at whatever query parameters, like, hey, from such and such date, or before, or maybe in a certain order. We look at those parameters, and then we just basically build a query using that guy. And the database is MongoDB, forgot to mention, but basically we build a query. And I forgot kind of where that was. But basically it's going to be some Mongoose specific syntax, which basically allows us to make a really performant query. We only need to query our database one time instead of like building a bunch of different join statements and having nested loops to find all the related documents. That's one thing I really like about MongoDB actually. So, oh, my bad. It's not working because I only opened up this one file. But in any case, yeah, so we get associated records. Because whenever you have a rental, you need to know who actually rented it, right? And basically we build a pipeline, blah, 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 some more complicated stuff, semi-complicated, a little bit of validation, making sure that our data is good. And then essentially at the end of the day, we return a response. And obviously this is all within a try catch so that any errors are caught and we don't crash our application, and we can figure out what to do for the client. But okay, I've actually gone on for a long time now. My bad, kind of got in the weeds there. Let's go back and recap. Yeah, we got our React Native application. It's right here. There's still work to be done, but it's a work in progress. Understand live streaming dynamics. The dynamics currently is that I have exactly a couple people that are following me. Thank you, Lynn and Carlos and Michael. Appreciate you guys' support. I wonder what's going on YouTube. I hope I can make it on YouTube, man. I'm tired of working for people, man. Working for people fucking sucks. Yeah, it'd be fun to just teach online all the time and get paid for it. So guys, send me some love, man. Give me a like on YouTube and a follow. I'd appreciate it. I wonder if I can share this. Yeah, give me a like and a subscriber. I can only monetize once I get to 1,000 subscribers. So I'm like 400. I'm like 400 short right now. I'd appreciate the support from my friends and family near and far. Okay, so all right, cool. My bad, I kind of got distracted. I don't know how long I've been streaming for actually. I'm literally doing this off my laptop and I don't have a second monitor. So we're just learning as we go. I don't know how long I've been streaming for. I don't have a timer. I should have looked at the clock. Damn, look at the clock. Must be an hour ago, probably about an hour. So anyway, I've gone on for a while. Let's just recap and then call it a day, and then we'll figure out something more interesting for the next video. So yeah, we're having fun. I'm having fun actually. I do. All the crazy stuff I post on the internet, no one comments. Only when I used to think no one was interested in technology, but whenever I post crazy stuff, no one comments or messages me privately. When I talk about tech, I do get a lot of people message me and like and comment and stuff. So I guess I need to keep that up. So thank you guys for your support. Did I demonstrate how to set up Turboship? Yeah, I think I did, right? If anyone has any questions or is confused, please comment or message me, because I feel like I've put in a lot of work. Obviously not an infinite amount, but like a good amount of work to try to make this clear. And like it still needs work, but once again, we're trying to get a couple different things rolling at the same time. So yeah, how to set up Turboship. Basically, you define your resources, your tables, their fields, and their values, their data types. Then you generate the code, you download the zip, and you're good to go. You run your web app or your web API. So the API is just built into Nuxt. It's just basically any path, right? Like any of these guys. Oops, I kind of went to the wrong path. The value proposition of this guy right here, right, is that because you have an API that's already available, you can build the web app and the mobile app. It's already done for you. You don't need to build it twice, so to speak, like back in the day. I don't know why it kind of clears every single time I move away. Okay, next, the web application, right? Basically the admin dashboard, right? With the graphs and the calendar and the UI kit and the different tables. Run the Flutter app. Yes, it's the one that we did the live chat on. Run the React Native mobile app. Yes, it's the one that we are looking at right now. It's this guy right here. And yeah, it's like a nice starting point, right? Because you don't want to have to re-implement this every single time you create a new project. It's just kind of annoying. Anyway, I guess I'm gonna leave these to myself as a measure of success. I'll kind of think about how I define success with these guys right here more in the future. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and take it easy, stay safe. I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you.